It is now 5 o'clock. I'd like to call today's City of Bloomington Utility Service Board meeting to order. The City of Bloomington Utilities' mission is to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing safe, sustainable, and high-quality drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater services in a cost-effective manner, promoting public health, economic vitality, and environmental stewardship. If any board member has any personal or financial conflict with any issues or individuals on the agenda, then please be sure to recuse yourself during those portions of the meeting. We'll start off with petitions and communications. Are there any petitions or communications from the public? Hearing none, we'll move along to the approval of minutes from the previous meetings. First, we have our regular meeting on August 25th. Any questions or comments about the minutes from the regular meeting on August 25th?
Well, in that case, then, I'll move that we approve the minutes of the meeting from August 25th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. Next, we have the bid opening from August 25th. Are there any questions or comments on the bid opening? Do we have a motion for approval?
I move we approve the bid opening from August 25th.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Bid opening is approved. Moving along, we have the approval of claims. We start with the standard invoices for a total amount of $453,020.17. Are there any questions or comments on these standard invoices? Hearing none, do we have a motion for approval?
I move we approve the standard invoices for pay date September 12th.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Standard invoices are approved. Next, we have utility bills for a total amount of $84,871.26. Are there any questions or comments on the utility claims?
All right, I move we approve the utility claims list for September 8th.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Utility claims are approved. Next, we have wire transfers for a total amount of $613,436.89. Are there any questions or comments on the wire transfers?
I move we approve the wire transfers for September 2025.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Wire transfers are approved. Thank you all. Moving along, we have approval of consent agenda. Catherine Zager.
Good evening, I'm Catherine Zager, Utilities Director. I'm presenting tonight's consent agenda totaling $95,739.39 for all non-chemical contracts. Our first contract is with Cassidy Electric LLC for $20,000 for on-call services for medium voltage electrical. Next is with Price Electric Inc. for $20,000 for on-call services for low voltage electrical. Next is with Dotlick Crane Inc. for $1,800 for a crane being used to remove and put back a pump for repair at the Henderson Pump Station. Next is with Electric Plus Inc. for $5,175 to install wiring for a battery charger at Monroe Water Treatment Plant. Next is with Troy Risk Inc. for $10,367.50 for a Phase 2 environmental site assessment for the property located at 6570 South Old State Road 37. Next is with Jacoby Carbons Inc. for $1.02 per pound for the supply of carbon aquasorb at Monroe Water Treatment Plant. Next is with Airgas Specialty Products, Inc. for $0.1484 per pound for the 2025 supply of aqua ammonia at Monroe Water Treatment Plant. Next is with Electric Plus, Inc. for $3,970 to run three-phase power in the slow mix building downstairs for the new carbon at the Monroe Water Treatment Plant. Next is with Gonzalez Companies LLC for $16,000 for West 8th Street and Fountain Drive detention ponds, civil plans update, bid administration, and construction support. Next is with Aquatic Informatics, Inc. for $8,426.89 for WIM software license and support at CBU plants. And last we have Amrise Building and Envelop LLC for $10,000 for on-call services for roofing. Is there any member who wishes to consider one or more of these items individually? Hearing none, if there's no opposition, these items will be approved as recommended by staff. Hearing no opposition, the consent agenda is approved.
Item 7 is request approval of resolution 2025-17, finance bond for 2025 water rate case. Chris Wheeler.
I'll actually be presenting
Oh.
This is for the finance bond.
And he skipped it.
Oh,
He's-
oh,
Sorry.
I
That's
skip,
okay. No,
skip.
no,
Sorry,
No,
I was
he-
reading.
yeah.
My bad.
That's okay.
Okay,
You're right, yes.
Request,
Yes.
request approval of resolution 2025-16, adjustment of water rates and charges of the city of Bloomington Water Works Utility. Catherine Zager.
Hello, Catherine Zager, Utilities Director. Requesting approval for the adjustment of water rates and charges of the City of Bloomington Water Works Utility. I'd like to first, we've had multiple presentations on this, but first I'd like to introduce Stantec. Stantec has been our consultant who has been essentially leading us and in charge of this cost of service study, which we're basing our rates on. So Stantec has a lot of experience in helping water utilities with financial sustainability analysis, developing their water rates and budgets, and has done similar cost of service studies for other cities. Andrew Burnham, specifically, who we've been working with, has worked with cities such as Ann Arbor, Michigan, St. Petersburg, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Nashville, Tennessee. Stantec has worked with staff throughout this process, making sure that we were always on the same page and understood where they were going, explaining things along the way, especially for me as I learn as we go through this. They were also great about seeking input from staff when questions arose or they needed clarification for some of the data that they were receiving from us. After working through them with this cost of service study, CBU staff feels confident that the cost of service study approach has resulted in one of the most accurate data-driven water rate assessments that this utility has had to date. And with that, I'd introduce Danica to go ahead and do the presentation for the cost of service study.
So much for the introduction, Kat. My name's Danica Katz. I'm with Stantec, and as Kat mentioned, we also have Andy Burnham here as well. And today we're going to walk through the cost allocation and rate design. So we've got a handful of slides here that Kat mentioned, provide data-driven findings as well as just walking through the process of the cost of service itself and ultimately where we land with those findings and rates. So with all that, step through. So the first step of the process was to look at the test year and determine if we had an appropriate test year with 2024. So we looked at things such as annual rainfall patterns. Next slide. Some of the billing data that was provided by the city. So we went through detailed analysis of all of that data that was provided just to confirm that we were utilizing a representative test year. In addition to the billing data that was provided, the city also provided AMI data. Pop to the next slide. Here's some additional billed monthly usage that we went through. Next slide should show some of the AMI related data. So we looked at this on a very in-depth level by customer class for those appropriate test years, which really ultimately gave us the backing for the peaking factors that were derived for the cost of service. So we looked at it on both a daily level, and then on the next slide you'll see we also looked at it from an hourly perspective as well. It shows the hourly AMI data by those classes. And then if you keep going, one more slide. This would show that, all of that data that was provided up until that point that we went through and did our analysis on would ultimately get us to the max day and peak hour factors for each of the individual customer classes. And so that was the analysis that we conducted on kind of an upfront customer demand usage and test year perspective. And then we went into the actual cost allocation analysis itself. And for that, I guess just from a high level, the objectives of the cost of service is we take the annual revenue requirement that was provided by Crow, has been presented thus far, and ultimately the goal is to determine the cost to serve for each of those customer classes compared to the current revenue that is being collected, ultimately to get us to that cost of providing service to each of those individual customer classes. Okay, next slide. So this just shows a high-level approach for the cost of service study itself. So step one, we get the revenue requirements from Crow, and our second step is to functionalize all of those costs into different buckets or different functions for the system itself. The next step would then be to take all of those costs, all of the functionalized costs, and ultimately allocate those to different demand characteristics. So that would be that base, max day, max hour, and customer that you see there. And then the last step is ultimately to take all of those costs and distribute them to the different or various customer classes of your system or of CPU system, which would ultimately tell us, based on all the data that we had and all the information that was provided by CBU, the cost to serve results or findings. So this will just step through in a little bit more detail, all of those high levels. So step one here is ultimately the revenue requirements, which have been presented by Crow. So just wanted to recap that. Just shows all of the different components that make up that revenue requirements of that $29.1 million. And so then in step two, we take that $29.1 million of revenue requirements and we functionalize them by line item based on descriptions, working with city staff in many work sessions to make sure that we understand how each of those line items apply in the system, and ultimately get to a point where we functionalize all of those costs into their different respective buckets. And then here on the next slide, this shows kind of the summary level of those revenue requirements by function. So you can see 35% in that treatment and pumping, 11% and 14% in the supplies. Those are kind of the three, I'll call it major categories. There's a 21% transmission, and then some smaller percentages there on customer related and fire protection related costs. But ultimately, just taking that $29.1 million and functionalizing them into those different buckets. Okay, and then step three, we allocate those functionalized costs to the different demand parameters. So you can see here, majority of the functions get a portion of the average day demand costs. There's a handful there that get a portion of max day as well as max hour. And then there are certain functions that are strictly customer or meter related, which is the billing and services that you can see over to the right there. And then just a small piece for fire protection. Okay, and then in order to get the percentages that make up each of those different spreads of base extra capacity or the average max day, max hour, we just utilize system data provided by the city for 2024, which ultimately gets us to those percentages and the share between average day, and max hour that you can see there. And then the customer being, allocated directly or functionalized directly to customer. Okay, this is just a dollar summary. When you take those percentages and all those functionalized costs, this is the matrix that you get, or a summary of all of the costs by different function, by different demand parameters, but still ultimately getting to that 29.1 revenue requirement. We also take into account fire protection. So the city provided us detailed information of calls for service. So we looked at certain calls for service and the number of those in 2024 in order to develop the fire protection side, as well as the max day and max hour associated with those flows. Next slide. We also utilize data on the fire protection side to differentiate between public and private fire. So we were able to identify certain hydrants that were specific to public versus private based on those demand factors that you can see here. Okay. And then ultimately, when we get to the point here at step 4, we take all of the units of service and all of those functionalized costs and pull it all together. This just shows, this table right here, a summary of all of the units, so the number of bills, number of customers, and then all of the usages. But ultimately on the next slide, we pull all of that together based on all of those pieces that I just went through. And we get to a point where we say in the blue bar what the cost of service is for each of those individual customer classes, compared to an orange what is currently being collected for all of those, or what the existing revenue is. And you can see that the change between the orange and the blue is essentially that 30.5% overall increase, but it shows the percent needs down there on the bottom between the different customer classes. You can see residential showing that 18.9% increase, and so forth across the board there for that 30.5% increase. And so that was the cost of service, and then we moved into rate design, or rate structure design. Just a quick slide here talking about the CBU's current structure. So currently, you can see on the left side there are fixed charges by meter size, as well as on the right side, uniform volumetric rates per 1,000 gallons by each of those individual customer classes, or for each of those individual customer classes. I just wanted to highlight the current structure there. Also wanted to highlight some of the current fire protection charges. So there is a public fire protection charge by meter size for both inside and outside city, as well as a private fire protection for private fire lines that has a separate charge by meter size that you can see over there on the right side. We'll just quickly walk through. So the fixed charge components, or the items that make up the fixed charge, include customer service related items, anything meter related, services or service drops, and anything billing and billing collection. And so what this slide demonstrates is, based on the cost of service findings that we've shown on some of those prior slides, we take those by each of those components, and we either scale them or don't scale them based on the specific line items and how they operate in the system. But ultimately what it does is it gets to in that bottom table there, the unit cost across all customer classes, across all meter sizes, that flat $5.32. And then the $2.84, which is scaled upon meter size. And you'll see that, I think we have a slide coming up here that shows how that gets, yep. So you can see that flat component is flat across all meter sizes or irrelevant to meter size. And then the scaled component is increased by meter size based on a scaling factor, which ultimately get added together to make up that fixed charge. And then you can see it compared to the current fixed charge, and you can see that dollar change and percent change there. So a slight increase on those lower meters, and then actually a decrease on some of the larger meters. We also went through a similar analysis to look at the rate development for public fire protection. So we went through and took all of the costs of service between public and private fire there, based on what I presented earlier for the split between public and private, and ultimately did something very similar where we get to a unit cost between inside and outside, or a separate unit cost for inside and outside. And then the next slide here, very similar to what we just looked at on the other slide. Those charges are then scaled by meter size, and you can see that compared to the current charge. All these charges here for public fire are going down slightly based on the cost of service findings, showed an overall decrease for that specific customer class. Okay. And then again, did something very similar here on the private fire protection. So we take the findings for the private fire and the billing from the cost of service, and we get to a unit cost there, $3.29, $5.32, which ultimately get us to that total monthly private fire charge by meter size. And then we've compared that to the current as well, and show that dollar change and percent change there to the right. Okay, and then here what we wanted to show was, so in the original cost of service graph that we provided were the full cost of service. But what we are showing here is that we have capped the irrigation at 4 times the overall identified rate increase of 30.5. So you can see that 122 is 4 times the 30.5%. And so what we are doing here is just trying to get irrigation closer to cost of service based on some prior rate cases and discussions with CBU. And so this just shows, kind of that reallocation of irrigation to some of the other customer classes here, but as a summarization. Okay, and this graphic should look very familiar, but this is essentially with the cap and adjustments for irrigation service. So irrigation is capped at that 4 times the overall rate increase, and so you can see there's some small adjustments on some of the other customer classes to ultimately get to that 30.5% overall increase or amount of revenue needed. Okay, and then just one more summary of rates here. This was presented on some of the prior slides, but just wanted to kind of put it all together. We've got the current rates there compared to the proposed, and then the usage charges as well. I think it was mentioned on the last one, but I'll just highlight it for that general service. The reason there's 2 rates there is because throughout the study, or through the study, we've determined that we're going to consolidate the commercial and industrial customer classes. And that is just due to number of customers in the industrial class, as well as their trends and peaking factors being very similar between the 2 classes. And then you can see the other rates there as well for irrigation, wholesale, and residential. And then then we do something very similar on the monthly to show the comparison here. Like I mentioned, those public fire protection rates are going down slightly, and the private fire protection are going up slightly.
Did we lose her?
Just when I was getting this.
Danica, did we lose you?
We may have lost our audio. I was wondering if it was just me. This is Andy Burnham with Stantec. I can carry us through the last part of the presentation. Just on these customer bill impacts for residential, this is just a summary of the specific rates and charges that Danica went through, and just applying them to residential customers with a 5/8 inch meter at different usage levels. So as you work your way from top to bottom on the table, you can see the current bill with all charges, inclusive of the fixed charges, public fire protection, and usage charges, and the proposed to see what the dollar and percent change would be. And so you can see for lower volumes of residential use, that range of increase might be $1 to $5. And then as you get to those higher levels of usage, you can see the levels of increase, correspondingly increase. In aggregate, the range of percentages it represents is about 16% increase to 20%. We do have a couple of other bill impacts, so if you go to the next slide, please. We also looked at general service customers, and with general service customers, there can be a variety of different meter sizes as well as usage levels. So we grabbed the two most common meter sizes, 3/4 inch and 1 inch, and then in looking at the billing data, just kind of identified some profiles of small, medium, or typical and large usages, and provided the same information so that you could see what the current bill and what the proposed bill would be, to kind of get a sense of the range of the impacts that the proposed rates would have on both the dollar change and a percent change basis. So you can see for some of the small usage levels with a 3/4 inch meter, that might be a $3 increase. To larger usage at that 3/4 inch meter, it might be about $22. The range of increase would be 22 to say 46%. And then for a 1 inch meter, a smaller usage there would be about 15,000 gallons per month. And so the increase on that commercial bill would be about $32. If you look at a larger usage level at a 1 inch meter at 25,000 gallons, that increase would be about $54. So between that 45 and 50% level. And then if you go to the next slide, we again also looked at bill impacts for wholesale customers. And again, this will depend upon the level of usage, which here again is much greater. But you can see generally the range of increase is between 38 to 48% on those bills, depending upon the amount of volume that we're looking at. And you go one more slide, we also do have Indiana University master meter to 6 inch meter. Again, looking at just the different range of usage levels for their account. For master meter customer bill, with a range of increase of about 38 to 58%. Obviously significantly higher usage levels here than say residential or commercial customers, so the dollars are certainly larger. And the last but certainly not least would be the irrigation meters. And so for a 3/4 inch separate irrigation meter service, again, those bills would increase between say $30 at 5,000 gallons. If you did 30,000 gallons a month for the irrigation, it might increase $181. This assumes no conservation, so this is current bill and proposed bill at the same amount of usage level. Notwithstanding that with the irrigation, customers do have the ability to control the amount of usage on that service, and could potentially moderate the increase if they did that. I think with that, it concludes the presentation, and I think Danica, you might be back with us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you hear me? Sorry, apologies, I don't know what happened.
It's okay, you're back.
Thanks for carrying us through. I heard the whole thing.
Yes.
Don't know what I did.
Okay.
I do have, I have a few more slides of just, impact and kind of some of our capital improvement projects. If you'd like to go through those first and then do questions at the end. You can do that? All right. Okay. Again, this slide is pretty familiar. This is the impacts on my own bill. We looked at our data a little bit, and so we say, the average residential customer uses between 3 and 5 units a month. The actual average is 3.5. So again, my bill went from 7101 to 7535, and that includes my small sanitation cart using 3 units. So there's that. And I also wanted to point out, and we pointed this out in our public meeting on the 29th, where we stand and where we will potentially stand if these rate changes are accepted. We're currently, our combined water and sewer rate is 24th out of cities and towns in Indiana with over 25,000 people. If these proposed rates are accepted, that will essentially keep us at 24. Yeah. And then looking at our water rate at the next slide, thank you. In that same group of cities and towns, our water rate would move from in the lower third to being in the lower half, so move from 30th to the 25th out of 39 cities and towns. Now I'll go on to talk about our capital improvement plan a little bit. With this rate, we will be bonding for some capital improvement projects, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about how we'd be spending this money. So first I'll start with our water treatment plant projects. Our planned water treatment plant projects total $30.7 million. Those projects include electrical upgrades, sediment basin rehabilitation, chemical building improvements and feed line replacement, which will include restoring a safe and sustainable fluoride delivery system. Those also include some high service pump rebuilds and variable frequency drives, essentially improving reliability and redundancy at the plant. Next slide. Yep. We also at our plant will be making sure that we're funding our maintenance projects. We have quite a few maintenance projects. This also includes the completion of our asset management system. We'll be doing treatment plant water handling and delivery updates, bypass pumping improvements, and then we will do a residuals project with our backwash pump replacement and improving the efficiency and consistency of our filter cleaning at Monroe. Next, we have projects that fall into 2 major categories with our distribution system that total $34.4 million. The first category is booster station and storage tank rehabilitations and upgrades. This will include the addition of emergency generators, which will improve our preparedness and reliability during natural disasters, electrical grid issues, or other emergencies. The other category is water main projects, maintenance, testing, and replacement. This includes replacing our aging water mains and servicing our valves proactively in a more cost-effective manner than just emergency repairs and replacements. And then finally, we have the water portion of the Winston Thomas Service Center, which is $18.7 million. I think this board has discussed extensively our need for a new service center as we outgrow our current one. This is going to set us up for operational excellence, fiscal responsibility, and community resilience. That is all of the slides we have to present. I'm happy to take questions. We also have Jennifer with Crow as well if you have questions about revenue requirements.
Thank you to the representatives from Stantec, Crow, who did hard work as well, and CBU. All this information is valuable. Opening it up to questions from the board.
I have a question on the cost of services study, the methodology in step 2. I understood it other than why extensions and replacements was assigned to all functions.
Sure, I can speak to that. So it was assigned to all functions based on the 5-year capital improvement project that was, project listing that was provided by CBU. And that is because all of those extensions and replacements, they are categorized based on the way that the 5-year CIP is categorized. So we tried to appropriately assign those based on the functions that were identified in the CIP. So if there was, a specific amount of projects that were assigned to pumping and treatment based on the capital, then the extensions and replacements gets allocated on that corresponding percentage. So it's really a direct allocation from the provided 5-year capital, I guess is the better way to say it.
Okay, were there projects within the capital improvements plan that were not related to in-the-ground infrastructure that you would think normally would be associated with, say, treatment pumping or transmission or distribution storage? Were there, for some reason, other types of projects in there that, and is that why it got distributed across all functions? Okay, so it seems to me when I hear those words, extensions and replacements, I'm thinking about in-the-ground infrastructure or, some other hard infrastructure. And it seems like a lot of the other functions are not hard infrastructure. That's why I have the question. Can you explain that to me, why extensions and replacements got allocated across all functions when some of the functions seem like they're not associated with hard infrastructure?
So extensions and replacements is, when you look at our budget, so we just did our budget, extensions and replacements is its own line. That is essentially our, and correct me if I'm wrong, essentially that is our cash for projects versus bonding for projects. Correct. And so in extensions and replacements, that cash goes to all these different projects. It's not just extensions and replacements of underground infrastructure necessarily.
Or tanks. It goes for all types of projects that could be related to customer service or something. Thank you.
No problem.
That's.
Got you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my one question
Awesome.
on that part.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I've got to say that the cost of service analysis made perfect sense to me, and I was surprised that I understood it so easily. I have one question for you, Kat. It seems that with our increases in rates, if I heard correctly, we did not change positions relative to other cities in Indiana. And I would have thought unless there are a lot of other cities also changing their rates, that we would have decreased somewhat. So that surprised me.
So we did, if you're looking at our combined rate, we moved up, but it was really just 24 to 24. That's, I forgot what number slide that is, sorry. It's the one before that. Yeah. So you would think that we'd move down. So every city or town that has a 2 next to it, those actually have pending rate increases. So we'll probably shuffle in there after those rate increases happen.
That's what I assumed, but
Yeah.
I couldn't read the slide.
No problem.
While we're on the topic, just the water rates, there's a whole bunch of them at the top that were exactly the same. Is that because there's a cap? Is there a cap on water rates in the state? Is that why they're all the same?
That's a great question. I think maybe Jennifer would be best to answer
Yeah,
that.
this is Jennifer Wilson. Yeah, all those communities are all served by Indiana American. So they have the same rate structure, even though they're located in different parts of the state. They all are under the same rate structure, so 5,000 gallons calculates the same for all of those.
And it's about twice as much as it is here. I guess we're happy we have a municipal-owned utility.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a couple historical questions here. So the last time we did a rate case review on water was 4 years ago, correct? Or we're a little longer, a little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
Okay. I was on the board when we did this previously, and I don't recall the exact number, but I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, we were still at this same point. And that point being, the cost of service was 30% higher. Maybe it was 26% higher. Does that ring a bell?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was more than, yeah.
So I guess my question is, are we doing enough? Are we going to come back in 4 years and that number is going to be 32.1%? I mean, are we doing enough to just kind of keep it status quo? We're not moving there, and to me, that really doesn't matter to me personally. What matters to me is that we're providing the most excellent water that we can, and we're a great place for our employees to work, and we're a safe place. So, where we fall in the state really doesn't matter. What matters to me is, are we setting ourselves, by not taking perhaps a higher increase, whether it's now or later, we're never going to catch up with what expenses are. And there are many organizations that I know of, nonprofit, for-profit, city organizations, that it just costs too much, or the costs do not get covered by the revenues. And are we just going to continue to be in this hole for years to come? If that makes sense. I guess that's what,
Yeah.
Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? And in 4 years from now, are we still going to say it's 30% or it's 35% against cost of study?
I'll say that it's hard to predict what it would be the next time, if it's going to be a 30% or a 25% need, as the economy changes, as our goals change, and as what the projects that we want to be able to do to provide the best quality water in the future changes, right? Right now, with where we are in our CIP and the projects that we've prioritized, that we've used the business risk analysis study from Wessler, this is what we can do and what we can handle in the next 4 or 5 years, and this rate helps us do that. So when we come around for another rate case, it'll be dependent on what are the goals of the utility, what are the projects we have planned, where are we at in comparison to the economy. And so those I think are the major factors that would influence the next rate case.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Question, I'm just repeating things I've said before, relevant to Amanda's point. It is likely, I suppose, that the state regulatory board will not give us as much of an increase as we're asking. And secondly, it will take a long period of time before it goes into effect. So I simply repeat my statement that I make every year, that wouldn't it be nice to be out of the grips of the State Regulatory Commission and doing it ourselves more quickly and efficiently and without having it cut by someone who may not understand fully what our needs and costs are. So I just put that out there.
What are the other options to not working with them?
Molly asked, what's the other option? What's the other option?
That we set our own, that there are cities in Indiana that are not under the jurisdiction of the State Regulatory Commission. Is that not right, Chris?
That is right, Jim. We can go through the process of removing ourselves from the IURC's jurisdiction.
We didn't think
which
that was
case what
prudent in
happens
this rate
then,
case.
This board would recommend the rates to council, council would set the rates, and we wouldn't have that next step of going up to the IURC.
So we understand the advantage, that one advantage. What are the disadvantages?
Disadvantage is that the buck stops here. We don't have the IURC reviewing the rates and having the OUCC protecting the customer classes against the rates that we've set.
Doesn't seem like much of a disadvantage.
And are we currently exploring this? I mean, Jim has brought this up several times. And I understand that we are in the rate case situation right now, but I was under the impression about 6-7 months ago that this was there was a conversation happening about what would we do? What are the pros and cons?
Conversations have been had and conversations continue, and after this rate case is completed, the city will have to make a decision with this board, of course, as to whether or not it wants to remain with the IORC.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Molly, you go. I'll get my
What
thoughts back.
happens if the IURC does not accept, like, what will the utilities department do in that case? What will you have to cut, or?
So if the full rate is not approved by the IURC, we will need to look at our expenses and likely cut projects.
Okay, so those priorities are not known yet? Like, what would be cut in that case?
We do have a prioritization from Wessler, so we would prioritize things like much-needed improvements at the plant. We would prioritize being able to continue to deliver clean and safe drinking water.
But those changes would come before the board.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. You've answered many of my questions throughout all of the fellow board members. One of them was that it's 3.5 average units per month for our average customer. Because when, I appreciate you sharing your bill, and when we see the monthly impacts on our residential customers, you know, those using, say, 5,000 gallons and below, it's $6.06 increase per month and then less, but then reaching up to our 50,000 gallon users, they have an increase of $48.10 per month. And so I recognize that's a significant or a much larger dollar amount. And so at some point, I would be interested to see a breakdown of like how many customers fall into each of these different categories, just on average, not like a big, it took me a whole day's work to find this information, but maybe if that's something that we've provided with the study that we could see sometime. Thank you. I also have concerns about thinking back to our last rate case, and I was newly on the board at that time, and IURC did not give us what we had requested. What feedback have we taken from that experience and applied to this rate case, so we're more prepared and more likely for them to say, yes, City of Bloomington Utilities, we see that you have these needs and we are going to approve them to be implemented?
So I can definitely name one. So our last rate case came with a settlement where there were entities called interveners. And so an agreement as part of that settlement was that we would have these meetings before we filed to discuss our cost of service study. There were a lot of things that we agreed to. This cost of service study was one of those things. And so I think that having that open communication with these stakeholders will go a long way in the IURC hearings, and just doing everything we can to do pre-filing meetings and to communicate well ahead of time to give plenty of time for deliberation. I think that's going to really help us out this time.
Will you submit like the documents that Stantec and Crow have, like here's the evidence for why we need this kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, I think.
To the, yes.
Thank you for that answer. And then, I'm just double checking I've got everything. I was not able to attend any of the additional public meetings. Can you please give us feedback? Did we have any customers that attended?
Okay, sure. So it was sparsely attended.
But you provided the opportunity.
Yes.
And that's what's important. And for plenty of people, we have, for those of you who can't see and you're watching from home, we have a whole room full of chairs here for you. So.
Yes, we provided space and seating for, I think, at least 60 attendees out in the chairs. And we each had a presentation from. We also had a screen out in the lobby in case we had overflow. We had presentations by myself, which is a lot of what you saw today. This was kind of an abbreviated version of that. And then we also had presentations by Crow and Stantec at the meeting as well. Jeff attended and gave us a lot of great questions. It was good, and a lot of good feedback.
Thank you. And then I just want to highlight the things that I really heard that were important with this rate case, that we're providing safe and sustainable fluoride delivery system, which I know is important. And when our customers hear about the increase, I know that's something that they see the value in that and know the importance of it. Obviously, they see the value in everything, but that's like a really important. And our water main replacement projects and our improvement in preparedness for disasters. So those are some of the things that really stuck out to me, along with all of the other things I feel are very valid that our organization needs and will benefit from. And I hope that the IURC sees the dedication that we've put into this rate case and rewards us with an accepted proposal. Okay.
Thank you.
We've talked a little bit about the capital improvements plan, and there's been some discussion over the last year and a half about maybe we got behind on some of this. We weren't keeping up with all the things that needed to be done as fast as we should have. And that's probably, as you've mentioned, it could be a combination of constraints on our ability or capacity to do so much at a time, but maybe also resources, so it may be a combination. Are you comfortable with looking at the capital improvements plan that Wexler's put together for us? Are you comfortable with us tracking so that we don't find ourselves playing catch-up ball? I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about this before, but are we in good enough shape with this request that we can fully stay on track with what Wexler has projected that we need to replace?
Yes, I see this capital improvement plan and what we've put into this as our catch-up. I'd love for this plan to have, more innovative treatments and, looking at things that we could do to improve our treatment processes and modernize some things. But really what this capital improvement plan does is play the catch-up in necessary electrical and instrumentation, making sure our equipment is up to date, and making sure that our treatment plants and our distribution system is in a good position.
Have we pushed ourselves much with this? Like, if we had the ability to do more, capacity-wise, have we, in this request, kind of asked for a little more to get us there in case we could?
So, are you asking if this request includes additional funds for projects outside of kind of what we've laid out in the capital plan, or?
Well, maybe if you look at the capital plan, and we expect this to take us the next 4 or 5 years, did we maybe put the stuff from year 6 in there? That's a different way to look at it, not specifically, but
This is very much the, no. Yeah, actually, Phil would be great to talk about the capital improvement plan. Thanks, Phil.
Phil Peden Engineering. So, as she said, we went through the business risk assessment. Wessler did that study, and so what we did was we took those numbers, and I don't have them in front of me, but I want to say it was 7 to 10. The highest scoring ones made it on the 5-year CIP, and then we know that there's some that are going to fall below that are now put on a 20-year CIP, so that we're tracking those so they can be in the upcoming rate cases as we move forward. Ms. Burnham asked a question earlier, and I think I would just add to Kat's response in the fact that we are allocating funds toward the projects that are in the 5-year CIP, but I think when you look at the 10-year CIP, you're going to see a very similar line of if it averages 13 million a year, we're going to be similar for the next 10 years. That's as far as at least I've looked out, and so so you had 64 million plus the 18 million for the new service center. So we don't have a new service center in the next 5-year CIP. That's in this one. So that's 64 divided by 5, something like that. I feel like that's a projection. Don't hold me to it, because there's still some fine tuning with that CIP. As a staff, we went through this 5-year CIP to see what we felt like was the highest priority based on Wessler's report, and if there's anything that we could push off that maybe we didn't have time or the allocation of resources, staff to manage those projects at the plant. Maybe some of those projects can't go on at the same time, something like that. So we looked at that and we're able to cut, say, like 20 million out of this 5-year CIP that will go to the next 5-year CIP. So we've looked at that. What I would say, I guess at least my opinion, is that we don't have a lot of buffer in the 5-year CIP for additional projects if they come up. We didn't have it in the last rate case. The SCADA project, the electrical project, there's multiple projects that were in the previous rate case that we never got to because we didn't have the funding to do so. By the time Ms. Zager's mentioned in the past that was based off of a 2019 estimate. Then we had COVID, so those estimates were off, plus some other factors that came into play where that funding wasn't available to handle the growth, the whole aspect of each project. So we're trying to catch up from what we couldn't do in the last rate case, and it's a lot of replacement to things at the plant, and it's not expansion or anything like that.
it sounds like we have a pretty good case to get to these goals then with the IURC.
I feel like that's true, especially with Wessler's report, where we've really came in and gave it a score, and we know exact prioritization of each item that's listed in the CIP.
Okay. The comment was, I appreciate the fact that we've got some significant amounts here for a generator and emergency backup. That's been something we've learned that we have to deal with almost annually now, full use of those systems, and we've come closer to running into trouble than we might realize sometimes. So we want to stay ahead of that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I also think we, as a board, recognize some of the challenges that you guys have had, changes in leadership, things that were completely out of, control here. I have to use I've watched my phrasing here. Some of the demands that are put on us by other entities, when we have to save limestone, or we have to protect something here, or somebody has done something in their previous business and we're now found out about it. So there's all those things that are just part of being a business that happen. And that those things have affected the bottom line of the budget. When all of a sudden you have something that has to be done, that's not going to get reimbursed, that we can't get a grant for, and we need X, Y, and Z accomplished, no matter what the cost is. So we can do all kinds of planning, but there's just things that are just going to happen over the next 5 years that are going to be out of our control. So I just want to say that for things that haven't happened, there's sometimes been reasons why things haven't happened, and we're working forward so that we can control what we can control, and continue to work through those issues and work as a team. So I just want to say that.
Finally, I'd just like to repeat something I've said before. I can assure any of the public that's watching that every employee of CBU, whether it's engineering, environmental, or administration, is incredibly underpaid. Given their experience and their expertise, they are underpaid. There are now big salaries out there that are eating up your monthly payments. And the service on the board, we do get paid a modest amount, and I guarantee that nobody among the 7 of us is serving on this board because of pay that we're getting.
Are we underpaid?
So, I just want to say that because this is an incredibly well-done organization, given the expertise that it takes to do what these folks do.
I want to go back into the weeds just on one topic, I'm sorry. So I asked at an earlier meeting what the estimated amount of the new building is going to be. And I'm wondering if someone can state that, where we're at with that number today.
Do we have those notes from that meeting?
And again, while you're looking, again, I'm asking because in the capital improvement plan, it's listed as 17 million for the buildings, and 1.75 million for the soft costs, so 18.75 million. If we indeed are splitting the cost 60-40, then that works out to just under 47 million for the entire package of soft costs and building. Is that our number that we are still at?
So,
Or is it indeed larger as I remember?
it's an ever-growing number, the longer we wait to build it. And so at one point, between 46 and 48 was the number, depending on the add-ons. So Weddle did kind of a did construction management assessment of it and said it's between 46 and 48, depending on your add-ons. And some of the add-ons were not really optional; they were definitely a part of the service center. So 48 is a little closer to what they had given us in the summer of 2024. If you take the construction cost index, price index, and apply that to that number, by the time we end up actually paying for it, it'll be closer to 52 to 54. So that is where we're at. And so we're hoping to line up our... Yeah. So as far as how we're planning on funding it, we are taking... we have not bonded for the project in either utility because we were waiting to see how this rate case will go. Seems like the right financial decision. But we have been approved for the wastewater portion, but we've been holding back the money that we would be paying for debt service on that to anticipate when we take out the bonds for the Winston Thomas project. When we do our next sewer and storm rate, we will adjust that estimate as part of that rate case so that we're trued up both in water and in wastewater. Does that help?
Well, if at
And
some
in
point
storm,
you could show
sorry.
us on a piece of paper how those numbers work. I hear you, all but that last little bit. I don't understand where we'd get the water side of it from a sewer rate increase. But if you could, at some point soon, present that to us, just in how that's going to work and where the money's coming from, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take a note.
And, yeah.
Visually, it might be easier for me to wrap my head around it if it's written out.
Yeah.
And then on the capped usage rate for irrigation, and it changed our residential from 18.9 to 19.8, so less than a 1% difference. And if we apply that to $30 for the bill, the water part of the bill that was on
Sure,
your bill?
yeah,
Yeah, so that's, then we're talking about 30 cents. Thank you, Jim, for your quick math. So it's, it's not nothing, but it's very, very small. It's not fair, but that's what we're stuck with. And the hope is, again, to realize the full cost of irrigation at the next rate case. Is that correct?
Yes, this will get us closer to the full cost of service for the irrigation customer class. We are hoping.
And then when our consultant, Stantec, was talking at the very end, the man's voice, I'm sorry, I forgot names.
Andy.
He talked about something about conservation in regards to irrigation, but I didn't understand that statement.
Sure. So a rate can also be a, what's the word I'm looking for? Andy knows the word. It's essentially, it's a motivator to,
An incentive or
And-
disincentive?
yeah.
To use less, in theory.
Yeah, essentially, like, if it's a higher rate, it's an incentive to use less, and irrigation is a customer class where you can be encouraged quite a bit to use less. And a rate can help encourage you to use less, a higher rate. Not is the word I'm looking for.
Okay, so but there's still a fixed cost and a cost per unit. We can't mix conservation rates and cost of service-based rates, right?
It's not a conservation rate.
That wasn't meant, it was just that.
Yeah.
It just, there's a higher cost, they're going to be incentivized to conserve.
less,
That's all
yeah.
he meant. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, thank you.
So that was a question that I'd actually missed, because it was, the irrigation is closer to the cost of service, and you've said we'll work to get there, but like, I don't know if any of us will be on the board when the next rate case comes around, but like, I think our hope would be that the gap is closed at the next rate case, like not still getting there, but it's done, I guess. I don't know, I don't feel like that's fair to pass along that, even at 30 cents or however much, when other customers are using it, just like in the case for annexation. Our county residents pay a higher rate because that costs more to get that to them. And so, like, I think that if our different customer class is using, that cost higher amount to get to them, that I think that they should be billed the actual amount. I guess looking ahead, I would have rather put in here the case for their actual amount, and then maybe the IURC said, you can't charge them that much, and then it backed it off, and I don't know. But I feel that specifically the irrigation, and I'm not thinking of any particular customer in mind, so I just think that they should pay their actual cost.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
What's the downside? Like, why
Why not?
why didn't we?
Yeah. So When we're looking at the rate design, basing it off of the cost of service, we generally want to avoid things like rate shock. And it would be a huge spike all at once, which is why we did make the decision to cap it at 4 times the revenue requirement. Even capping at 4 times the revenue requirement is still quite a bit of a jump from a previous rate. And so that's how we can do this a little more incrementally, and gradually get them to the cost of service.
Would we be worried about like people going out of business or like detrimental impacts to the customers by dealing with that level of shock?
I believe that is in general one of the concerns behind rate shock is that, it would have acute adverse economic impact.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy.
I think you're right, and I also, there's past precedent with IURC as well in terms of maximum levels of increases that they've accepted through past cases for customers in terms of being higher than 1 to 2 times the overall level of increase. So we're kind of working in that kind of a context and environment as well, but I think this approach definitely gets us closer, and I think we'll make more progress than what was done in the last case, and even from what I read from the case before that as well.
Any other questions or comments?
All right, I move approval of resolution 2025-16, the adjustment of water rates and charges for the city of Bloomington Waterworks utility.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. It is approved. Thank you. Now, request approval of resolution 2025-17, finance bond for 2025 water rate case. Chris Wheeler.
Good evening, Chris Wheeler with City Legal, and this is the finance bonding that's before you. We had Brad Bingham come in and speak with the board, well, virtually come in and speak with the board in the finance subcommittee meeting a few weeks ago, and also with, I think, the board as a whole then at the regular meeting. He's with Barnes and Thornburg, and he is with us again this evening, and I think he's going to walk us through at a fairly high level the bond ordinance as proposed. There he is. Mr. Bingham, please take it away, and then we will ask the board for approval.
Absolutely. Good evening, members of the board. Brad Bingham here. Again, this proposed resolution is kind of a companion piece to the rates and charges increase. Just like the rates and charges, any bonds of the waterworks would also have to be approved by the IURC. So the idea is to move these two pieces in tandem. The maximum authorized amount of the bonds would be authorized is $71 million. That's consistent with what Jennifer Wilson has assumed in her cost of study survey as well. It would be used to finance the bonds listed in Exhibit A of that resolution. That's just a subset of the overall projects in the capital improvement plan. It's contemplated there would be 2 separate series of bonds, one issued in 2026 and a separate series in 2028. Each of those would have their own separate 20-year maximum bond term. And again, this approves the form of the bond ordinance that would actually go to the council. So this is more of a recommending step. And then if the council approves it, then it goes to the IURC for their consideration along with the rates and charges. With that, happy to answer any questions about the resolutions or the ordinance or just the overall financing process.
Motion for approval?
I move we approve resolution 2025-17, the finance bond resolution.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Request is approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Item 8, request approval of resolution 2025-18, bid acceptance and contract award for Toric Engineering for Lucha Pool SCADA improvements. Mark Menifee.
Hello, Mark Menifee with Engineering, here to ask approval of Resolution 2025-18. That's to accept the bids from Toric Engineering for the Bleacher Pool SCADA improvements. Be happy to answer any questions.
Hearing no questions, do we have a motion for approval?
All right, I move we approve Resolution 2025-18 bid acceptance for the Toric Engineering and Blucher Pool SCADA improvements.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Request is approved. Next, we have request approval of service agreement with Toric Engineering LLC for Blucher Pool SCADA improvements.
So I'm also here to ask approval for the service agreement, the contract with Toric Engineering for this project at Blucher Pool. Happy to answer any questions.
I move we approve the service agreement with Toric Engineering for Blucher Pool SCADA improvements.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Request is approved.
Thank you very much.
Next, we got request approval of letter of engagement with Ice Miller LLP for PFAS litigation. Chris Wheeler.
Hi, Chris Wheeler, City Legal. This item before you is a letter of engagement. The city would like to hire Ice Miller to represent the city in a class action litigation that's going on against 3M and DuPont concerning forever chemicals. And this is not going to cost the city. This is one of those matters where if any kind of payment is made to the city out of the class action lawsuit, the law firm would then get paid out of that. That includes any expenses that they may have that they will incur for litigation. It will also allow the city to do additional testing of its drinking water at the source, and I believe drinking water at the plant, in order to see where our levels of PFAS currently are. We have tested in the past. We have folks here who can talk about PFAS and what our levels are now. They are extremely low. They are below what the federal recommended allowed level would be at this time. But any amount, any trace amount, any amount whatsoever of PFAS found in our source water allows us to be eligible for this class action lawsuit. I attended a seminar with Ice Miller discussing this class action lawsuit. Then we had a meeting with Ice Miller with most of the assistant directors and the director, and myself included, to discuss the merits of going forward with this. And we believe it is a benefit to the utilities, to the city, to the citizens of the city if we would engage in this class action lawsuit. And I would ask the board to approve this letter of engagement.
Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Chris, who are the other complainants in the class action?
Multiple cities across the country. I don't know who they all are.
So beyond
It's
Indiana?
an awful lot, yes. There are multiple cities within the state of Indiana that are engaged, and then all across the country.
Thanks.
How do we select Ice Miller for this?
Well, because they are currently engaged in representing cities in Indiana in this class action, and they were the ones that presented the seminar, and so I brought them to meet up with elements of the utilities department to discuss the potential of using them.
Okay. Thank you.
Beyond the time you've already put into it, what kind of time, even though there's no cost, will you or any of our staff be putting into the lawsuit?
That's a good question, and I don't know that I can really give you a good answer to that. I'm not sure what amount of time would be asked of our employees to provide any data or information. We were already doing testing, so that data is already, we've already sunk the cost of getting that data. The additional testing that will occur will be from an outside testing company that, that will come in and do the testing for us, so that shouldn't
Not at our
take up,
expense.
yeah, and that is not our expense as well.
That's additional benefit to us to get those results.
Correct.
At no cost
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Okay. Thank you.
You're gonna hate me. I guess I don't understand where this is coming from. What has,
There's a class action lawsuit currently going on against 3M and DuPont because they manufacture forever chemicals that go on to various products that are used throughout the country that have caused a great deal of contamination in drinking water, in soil. And so the fact that it's going on now, there are agreements and settlements that are occurring, and if we opt into the class action lawsuit, we are eligible to receive some of the settlement that'll come out. If we miss out on this opportunity, we could still sue some companies that use forever chemicals, but we may not be very successful in getting after 3M or DuPont, who are the main, I want to say culprits, probably not the best word, but the main manufacturers of these chemicals that have caused problems for our citizens and for the country. So there is a timing element that we want to get involved so that we can be eligible to receive some of the funding somewhere down the road. Some of the payments that come out of the settlement.
thank you. And that money that would come out of a settlement, would it come to CBU or is it the city that,
Well,
I know we are city and yet.
it goes to the utilities department because it's a water issue. It'll
Okay.
go towards our ability to someday down the line treat for, if we need to, and try to prevent PFAS from being in our drinking water.
Well, we've already done some of that prevention, right?
As far as, so we tested for PFAS in our source water, and our last tests, if I'm remembering correctly, the amount of PFAS in the source water was less than the federal limits at the time for PFAS in finished drinking water, and our drinking water was non-detect.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking more of
It
like
was non-detect, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's,
the work that was done on the west side to like encase or
Oh,
what's
those are PCBs.
different?
Yeah.
So the federal limits are being determined by the EPA. And if we ever get to a point where we need to start treating for PFAS, it's extremely expensive. So the money that we would like to be able to receive some of the funding if we can. I keep calling it funding, but the settlement payments. We would like to receive some of those if we can, because we would like to be able to use those to
Yeah.
go
And-
towards any kind of treatment that we may need to do, changes in our techniques. Yep.
And just to kind of, again, reiterate what you're saying, it's nothing that it's not chemicals that we're putting in.
No.
It's not anything that CBU is doing. It's consumer product items that are getting into our water systems, that are, whether it's through boating or whether it's through fertilization or, fertilizing or, whatnot. That's the type of stuff we're talking about. It's nothing that CBU has done through the treatment process.
It's all outside
Yeah,
source.
thank you.
So I heard you say that our raw water is detectable, but below the limits, and our finished water's undetectable. So our treatment is doing something, it would seem. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Yes, our current treatment methods are doing something, yes.
Thank you.
They weren't designed specifically for PFAS.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds like this is another step in our mission of safe and sustainable drinking water. Do we have a,
Yeah, I move we approve the letter of engagement with Ice Miller for PFAS litigation.
Second.
all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Request is approved. Thank you. Next, we have request approval of agreement for professional services with GRW Engineering Incorporated for Lower Cascades culvert replacement. Jane Fleeg.
Jane Fleeg for the record. This is a request to approve a professional services agreement. This is for the design and permitting of a culvert project in Lower Cascades. There's, I don't know if you drive down that road very often, but there are a couple of head walls that, at least the one on the east side is broken. We want to replace that culvert under Cascades Road and actually continue it to a connection point to the east. It's about 80 feet long, and this would be the design and the survey design and working with the permitting agencies because we will be working in a floodway. So IDNR, IDEM, a 401, a 404 permit. So we're asking for this contract in the amount not to exceed $181,860. It does currently include potential construction engineering services, but those could be, we could decide at a later date that those are not necessary, but it's currently shown in there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So remind me, is there a minimum distance under which these projects fall within city jurisdiction, and beyond that it's county, or is that just bridges?
Bridge, any bridge structure over 20 feet in span is county. They would be county bridges.
Okay.
This is about 16 feet in span.
Okay, otherwise it would be
Correct.
fall under their, oh, got it, thank you.
And it is Lower Cascades, Old State Road 37, which is a city-maintained street.
But it still could be county if it was that, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, does this happen to be a WPA project? Or do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
I was gonna say, if it is, we got 90 years out of it, so not so bad.
I was going to say, save the stone. Jane will have to save the stone.
Well.
Don't tell anyone that.
Yeah,
These are concrete head walls.
right.
I'm sure that this company will be able to tell us that before it's over.
Yes.
Well, I'll move approval then of the agreement for professional services with GRW Engineering.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Request is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along, old business. Any old business from the board? Old business from staff. New business from the board. New business from staff. Subcommittee reports. We had none today. Staff reports.
Yeah, we just have one. We would like to welcome Derek Belcher, who's our new instrumentation and control specialist, who will be working in our operations division. We're very excited to have him.
Welcome.
How did your budget presentation go?
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, that was weeks ago.
100 years ago. No, I think the budget presentation went really well. There were some good questions. The council did some follow-up questions that were written, which we gave written responses to, primarily asking about the negative budgeted number in ENR for water, which we've explained. But yeah, I think it went really well overall. I stayed under time.
Good.
Awesome. Next, petitions and communications. Any petitions or communications from the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.